Today's lecture will be over Chapter 25, Section 3, Objectives. Number 1, define Nepal and Bhutan as mountainous kingdoms. Number 2, compare aspects of economies of Nepal and Bhutan. And number 3, learn about culture and religion. We go ahead and we start out today looking at the area north and east of India right here. We have talked in previous lectures about India. We've talked about Pakistan and Bangladesh. Nepal and Bhutan are going to be a little bit different. As you can see on the map right here, there's going to be a mountain that's going to form called the Himalaya mountain range. And this right here, even if we go ahead and we look at the map right here, you're going to be able to see that they're going to be right along that border right there. Now, again, if we go back to the satellite, you'll see that the mountain range is up here, but that really doesn't do it justice. If we look at this picture right here, this drawing, what you see is that this is a little bit better representation about how tall these mountain ranges really are. You can see in this area here of Africa and Asia, Europe, that they don't even compare to the elevation of these mountain ranges right here. So keep that in mind when we start looking at Nepal and Bhutan. Both countries are going to be locked in the Himalayas. Each are going to have central uplands of ridges, valleys leading into high mountains. They're going to have small lowland areas along the Indian border. So the mountain landscape is going to isolate Nepal and Bhutan and make it very hard to reach. So what you see is that the migration that happens in other areas, when you see diffusion, you see areas being conquered. This doesn't really happen in Nepal and Bhutan because they're protected by the mountains. China does control Bhutan briefly in the 18th century, but for the most part, these areas are going to mostly be independent, and they're rarely going to be visited by foreigners. Now, in the past, both countries split into religious kingdoms and ruling states. The unified kingdoms are going to merge, and they're going to be led by hereditary monarchs. Again, basically passing down their kingdoms to their children. Now, today, both are called constitutional monarchs, and a constitutional monarch is when kingdoms are basically you have a ruler, and that ruler does have power, but because of a constitution, they're actually limited. These constitutional monarchs can't do whatever they want to because the constitution prohibits it. Bhutan's king is a supreme ruler, where Nepal shares power with parliament. Both must balance the interests of neighboring China and India. They're stuck right in between those two powerful giants, and they have to make sure that they don't do anything to upset them. Now, in terms of economies, both countries are poor agricultural economies, little farmland, don't have a lot of area. Most areas are going to be mountainous terrain. Poor soil, erosion causes issues, but they do have terrace farms that are going to grow rice, corn, potatoes, and wheat. Livestock are going to include cattle, sheep, and yaks. So what we see is that they are able to survive, but it's very difficult. Timber industry is important, but has led to deforestation. Again, when you start cutting down trees, that's good, and they're going to be able to replace themselves. But the problem is that it takes a very long period of time. And with that deforestation, they're cutting down the forest. Manufacturing, wood products, food processing, cement production, and most of what they do is that they trade with India to get a favorable balance of trade. But like we said, their resources are very, very stuck, very, very poor. It's going to make it difficult. Tourism is important in Nepal. What you have is that you've got people that are going to climb the Himalayan mountains. When people do that, they use hotels, restaurant services. Also, the Nepal's environment is going to be hurt by this tourism, trash, pollution, all left on the mountain. So they're going to try, or Bhutan is going to try to regulate this. They're going to limit tourism, keep some of the areas off limits. So tourism is important in this area for trying to climb the Himalayan mountains, but it's kind of a catch-22 because it's a good thing to bring money in, but it also can cause pollution and things like that. Now, what type of people do they have? Nepal's Indo-Nepalese and the Hindu are going to be the majority from India for centuries ago. They're going to speak Nepali, which is a variation of Sanskrit. Nepal also has groups in the Tibetan industry, including Sherpas. These Sherpas are high Himalayan people, and what they do is that they'll actually be guides in these people's conquests of trying to climb the Himalayan mountains, Mount Everest, things like that, and so they become kind of the intermediate between the kind of traditional people and the style of tourism that they have in this area. Bhutan's main ethnic group is Bohit, which is going to trace its origins to Tibet. And then Bhutan's minority is Nepalese. They don't assimilate. They keep their own language and their customs, and they can do this mainly because of their isolation with the mountains. Now, religious customs, what we see is that in this area, Siddhartha Gautama is going to be known as the Buddha, and he's going to be born around 500 BC. Nepalese were Buddhist, but today they've actually switched to Hindu. The Tibetan style Buddhism is the official religion of Bhutan. They use mandalas, which is a symbolic geometric design for meditation. Also, you have artisans that make bells, jewelry, sculptures, textiles. Festivals are going to feature songs of flutes, drums, brass horns. Bhutan is going to be famed for its archery contests as well. This concludes the lecture for Chapter 25, Section 3. Please make sure that you complete the assessment at this time.